The Nets have lost 9 straight. They're a mess, and they're still the favorite to win the championship because at least as of now, James Harden remains on their roster. Woj, what more can you help us with as far as his mentality and how it all fits together?
Well, Greeny, let's start here. We are certainly less than 24 hours from the NBA trade deadline. There has not been meaningful dialogue between the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, that doesn't mean it won't happen between now and tomorrow's trade deadline, but any potential James Harden trade to Philadelphia or anywhere, it would take a significant amount of negotiation. And it's not as simple as just Ben Simmons for James Harden. So start there. And I think the mindset in Brooklyn right now is simply when they get those 3 players back, Durant, Harden, Kyrie Irving, treat the post-All-Star break, when you expect Durant to come back, is almost a 6-7 week training camp until you get to the playoffs. Wherever they're seated, play-in, 6th seed, 5th seed, wherever they get to, they still believe that's a team that is going to have a tremendous chance to win a championship. And I think Brooklyn is prepared for the idea that they'll just treat James Harden, if his plans are to leave, treat it like Toronto did Kawhi Leonard and say, this is probably a one-shot deal. We want to win a championship. Our best chance is to do that. And who knows what happens when Harden gets back with Kevin Durant. They start playing together again the way they had planned to from the beginning. They've been apart. They've been separated because of the injuries. And I think right now, while you don't rule out the possibility that anything can happen leading up to the trade deadline, Brooklyn and Philadelphia are not engaged in anything meaningful, I'm told.
All right, outstanding. Woj, so great. Thank you so much again. We're less than 20 hours away, and don't forget that tomorrow on ESPN, the 3-hour trade deadline special. You see the crew, Malika at the center of all the action, Woj with the bombs and everybody else. Tomorrow, 1 to 4 Eastern time here on ESPN, right up to the moment of the trade deadline and all the reaction on what does and does not happen. And so, Michael Wilbon, let's turn to the Sixers side of all of this. According to Woj, it does not appear likely this is going to happen. And so it does beg the question, where exactly does this leave them? You have Joel Embiid having an all-time great year. You have them getting absolutely nothing out of the roster spot that is Ben Simmons. What are they? Should they be trying to make this deal at all costs?
How about this deal? Some deal. I'm not of the opinion that Ben Simmons is Bill Russell, and therefore he's the only thing you can plug in there, and Philadelphia can seriously pursue a title. Philadelphia's close now, tantalizingly close. And to me, and look, you like I with Daryl Morey, we are schoolmates in a way, Northwestern alums. We know Daryl well. We root for him. Get something, and I don't mean something. I did this whole thing about 20 cents on the dollar. I'm not buying that. All right? There are people that you could have gotten or can still get that can help the Philadelphia 76ers, who can be put on the floor with Joel Embiid, and they can elevate just enough. What is this, Stephen A? Another 10%? What do they need? Joel Embiid right now would be my MVP. I have a vote. Yeah. He would be one today. It might shift around. It might be, Joker, or it might be somebody else in the week. Tonight, it's Embiid, and he needs another player.
Jalen, you see the question on the screen. And Woj just told us that it is unlikely. But if Harden wound up in Philly between now and sometime tomorrow, do they become the best team in the East?
Not if they give up Thibault. See, people underestimating that this is a team game. You're going to bring James Harden there, and I love Maxey. You got to keep one of those guys.
Right.
So you keep Maxey and Harden. Who's going to guard Kevin Durant when he comes to town? You don't have anybody because you just traded Thibault. So in theory, I love Philly adding James Harden. But they got to keep Thibault. If they're giving up Thibault and or Maxey in the process, that's addition by subtraction.
Let me chime in here, particularly to you two Northwesterners. The Philadelphia 76ers are close. They're close, huh? Well, let me tell you something else they're close to. They're close to getting bounced out in the first round. If the players were to begin today, their opponent would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. They could possibly go home.
Who's not close to getting bounced out in the first round?
I'm just saying, you the one talking about they close to the title.
Out.
I'm telling you they're close to going home in the first round. That's number one. Number two, let me tell you what I've been hearing. Obviously, you got Ben Simmons. He's on the trading block. Daryl Morey's making mistakes in terms of what people are saying because he's been fixated on accumulating picks. He wants picks every time you turn around. That's been problematic for him. The other thing is that when you talk about trading them for Brooklyn, a team like Brooklyn wants a Thibault. They want a Maxey. Doc Rivers don't want to give up no Maxey.
No.
Exactly.
He loves Maxey, and when he
Should.
gives up Maxey,
Exactly.
and nobody wants to give up Thibault, okay? Then you've got people that are asking for Thibault and Maxey with Ben Simmons and picks because Ben Simmons is not playing, and they've lost such faith in him
Stephen A.
that they think that they could hose the Sixers.
That's a no.
Which is problem.
That's a no.
Of course it's a no.
That's a hang up the phone.
That's right.
Get off my line. That's a no.
But all of that stuff has been happening because they're trying to say Ben Simmons' value is dissipating before our very. That's not the case necessarily, but that's the pitch they're trying to make, which has created problems for Daryl Morey, who should have made a deal this summer and didn't do it.
So we have these two really good, or at least very interesting teams in turmoil in different ways in the East. Maybe they are the solution to each other's problem. It does not sound likely they're going to do it.
I wouldn't trade Ben Simmons to Brooklyn, by the way. I think that helps Brooklyn with Kyrie and KD. That's just me.
How about a 2 versus 7 in the first round?
As we
Philly versus Brooklyn.
playoffs,
How about that?
load ruled out for tomorrow's Nets game with hamstring tightness. So many questions about Harden right now. What do we know?
What we know is from what the people that I've spoken to, he wants out of Brooklyn. He does not want to be there. Now, he hasn't completely gone nuclear the way that he did in Houston, where he's showing up late or refusing to show up at all or what have you. One executive described it to me as him being at a 60% level. Another player echoed that sentiment. Whereas he went 100 at Houston, he's at about 60 right now. And Kevin Durant obviously would have something to do with that. He wants out. He wants to be in Philadelphia. The tardiness, the lateness, showing up to games late, things of that nature, all of that stuff has been happening. The reason why the Nets have held off on it, according to my sources, is that Kevin Durant chimed in and said, excuse me, I'm supposed to be back after the All-Star break. Well, guess what? If I'm back, I'm healthy. They're expecting and anticipating that the New York mayor will lift that mandate for the vaccine and what have you in terms of being vaccinated. They're anticipating that something like that will happen, which would make Kyrie Irving available. And then you couple both of that with James Harden, and things would get better. So that's KD's position. The Brooklyn Nets obviously support that position. The vaccine situation is a bit tricky. Remember, the mayor of New York is formerly the Brooklyn president, obviously has a relationship with Josiah, owner for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't anticipate that he's going to do anything, but they're expecting the mandate to be lifted come playoff time. How they would know that or presume that, I have no idea. But I'm just telling you what's being said, and that is what has prevented the Brooklyn Nets from trading James Harden. He wants out, though. He wants to be in Philly.
Okay, so let's put the vaccine part of this into the future because that's where it is. Let's put the Harden thing center of the universe right now because that is where we stand. Again, 20 hours away. Jalen, when you hear all of this, Harden, for whatever it's worth, he's making $44 million this year, and he wants out and is behaving the way James Harden sometimes has.
I'm going to talk about his lack of professionalism through the lens of one CP3, a guy that started with the Pelicans, right? And before you know it, he ended up in Houston playing with James Harden. And he had to leave there because him and Harden didn't get along. And he went to Siberia, OKC,
right,
to reinvent himself like a pro, like a vet. And now look at CP3. He just led a team to the finals, and he's an MVP candidate. He's doing the polar opposite of what James Harden is doing. It's one thing to get away with that in Houston and get your way and get to the Nets. But now you with the Nets and you still unhappy? Like you wanted Russ to come to Houston. That didn't work. Now you got a chance to be a part of a big three. And I'm going to tell you another reason why I don't think the deal happens. If you're the Nets, you don't know what Ben Simmons you getting in the middle of February.
Yeah.
He ain't played basketball since June of last year.
We'll get into that.
You know, the same Ben Simmons that struggled against the Hawks. You got to do that trade in the offseason where you can get that guy in the building, nurture him, get him used to the coaches, build his confidence back up before you even get him out there on the floor.
We'll get to the Simmons of it, but I'm so glad you said all that about Harden. Now, having said all of this, Michael Wilbon, the Nets have lost 9 straight. No team in NBA history has ever made the conference finals, much less the finals, in a season in which they lost 9 straight. And yet they remain the favorite right now in Vegas to win the championship. Well, Vegas usually has an idea of what's going to happen.
If you use your eyes, you can see that the Brooklyn Nets aren't going to win anything. That's like arguing that the Lakers are still going to win because they got
when the
big
three
names.
of them come back, if the 3 of them come back, you're going to put Kyrie, KD, and James Harden on the floor together. What are they?
First of all, are they even healthy? Didn't we just go through this last year? Is history no guide for us? No, the Brooklyn Nets are not a championship team like this. And when do you get all three of them back? And do you get them back? And some of us don't believe that the city of New York or New York State are going to change the vaccine laws for Kyrie Irving. Some of us aren't buying that. So do you get all three of them back and win? So I don't believe that. I believe that this would benefit. I'm like Jalen. I believe this would benefit Philadelphia potentially